You are listening to HOA Rulebook. She wanted control, not the truth. I am calling security right now. Karen screamed that I was being defensive, which proved guilt in her mind. She stood 3 feet from my front door, clipboard raised like a shield, orange warning tags fanned out in her other hand like she was about to slap one on my forehead. Her voice carried across the entire parking lot, echoing off the beige stucco walls of the townhome complex. I stood on my doormat in my brown hoodie, hands at my sides, trying to keep my face neutral. This was Harbor Point Residential Association in Fort Worth, Texas, and Paige Holloway, architectural committee member, had just accused me of stealing the clubhouse storage padlock keys. If she towed my car, I would lose my job. I am an HVAC tech, and my service van was in the shop, which meant my personal sedan was the only thing keeping me on the road for service calls. Paige jabbed the clipboard toward my chest. "You do not get special treatment," she said, her voice clipping every syllable. "The keys went missing 2 days ago, and you were the last person to complain about the cleaning schedule. That makes you the prime suspect." Her logic was a train wreck, but she delivered it like a closing argument. I asked for a copy of the rule that said I could be accused without evidence. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her floral perfume mixed with something sharper, maybe stress sweat. "Asking for the rule proves you are trying to find a loophole," she said. "You can expect immediate fines for demanding it, and your car will be towed tonight unless you return the keys and pay the penalties." I blinked. My car was parked 30 feet away in my assigned spot, the same spot I had used for 2 years without incident. "I did not steal anything," I said, keeping my voice level. "I do not even have access to the storage closet." Paige snorted and pulled out her phone, tapping the screen twice. She held it up, showing me a photo of a gray plastic storage bin sitting on a shelf in what looked like the clubhouse mechanical room. The bin lid was half open, and inside I could see a jumble of keys on rings, some with colored tags, some bare metal. No readable text, just shapes and shadows. "This was taken yesterday," she said. "The bin is supposed to be locked." Someone opened it and took the master padlock keys for the exterior gates and the pool equipment room. "You filed a complaint about selective enforcement last week, so the HOA policy requires immediate punishment until you prove otherwise." I stared at the photo. The bin was generic, the kind you could buy at any hardware store. The keys inside could have been anything. I asked how she knew I was the last person to complain. She tapped her phone again, switching to another screen. A paused security video frame filled the display, grainy and dim, showing the hallway outside the clubhouse storage room. The time bar at the bottom was unreadable, just a blurred strip of pixels. "This footage shows someone entering the area the same day you filed your complaint," Paige said. "Management confirmed your fob was used. Your timeline is irrelevant." I felt my stomach tighten. I had used my fob to enter the clubhouse gym that week, but I had never gone near the storage closet. The closet required a separate physical key that only board members and maintenance had. I said as much, my voice steady. Paige shook her head, her ponytail swinging. "You are lying," she said flatly. "The system logged your fob at the interior door. That is proof enough." She turned and walked toward my car, her blazer flapping in the evening breeze. I followed, my boots scuffing the asphalt. A neighbor 2 units down cracked his door and peered out, but he did not say anything. Paige stopped beside my sedan and set down a bright orange traffic cone on the pavement, right in front of my driver's side door, like she owned the space. She took another photo with her phone, holding it inches from my car's windshield, the flash bouncing off the glass. "This documents the vehicle in violation," she said. "Tow company has been notified. They will arrive within the hour." I felt a spike of panic but forced it down. "I need to see the access control report," I said. "If my fob was logged, I want the full timestamp and location data." Paige turned, her face twisting into a theatrical sneer. "You do not get to demand records while under investigation," she said. "That is obstruction." The fine for obstruction is $250, due immediately, and it does not stop the tow. I pulled out my own phone and opened the Harbor Point resident portal. The app was clunky, a white label mess that crashed half the time. But I navigated to the document request section and submitted a formal request for the access log, the storage room key assignment list, and the security camera metadata. I hit submit and heard the little swoosh sound. Paige watched me, her eyes narrowing. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I am requesting the records through the official channel," I said. "If you are going to accuse me, I want the documentation." She stepped closer, her phone now aimed at me, recording. She held it on a small gimbal, the kind influencers use for smooth panning shots, and she narrated her accusation in a loud, clear voice. "Resident refuses to cooperate, currently obstructing the investigation by filing frivolous requests. Vehicle will be towed at owner's expense. Refusal to return stolen property is a violation of community standards and may result in a lien process starting this week." I kept my face neutral, but inside I was calculating. A lien process was serious. If the HOA filed a lien, I could lose the townhome, and that would destroy my credit and my ability to work. I needed proof, fast, and I needed to stay calm in front of her camera. I looked directly into the lens. "I did not steal anything," I said. "I am requesting the evidence you claim to have. If you tow my car without proper authorization, I will file a police report for theft of my vehicle." Paige lowered the gimbal slightly, her smile faltering for half a second. Then she recovered and turned the camera off. "You think the police care about HOA business," she said. "They will tell you it is a civil matter. Good luck with that." She walked back toward her own car, a white crossover parked in a guest spot near the mailbox cluster. I stood beside my sedan, my pulse hammering in my ears. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. An email from the HOA management company. The subject line was vague. Access request update. I opened it. The body was 2 sentences. "Your request has been forwarded to the board for review. Processing time is 10 to 14 business days. No records would be released until I paid all outstanding fines and fees." I checked my account balance on the portal. $300 in new charges, a $50 investigation fee, a $250 obstruction fine, and a placeholder line item for towing costs, amount to be determined. I had not been given a hearing, a notice, or a chance to respond. The fines were just there, live, like they had been waiting in a queue. I called the management office. A recorded message played. "Office hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4. For emergencies, press 1. I pressed 1. Another recording. "If this is a life safety emergency, hang up and dial 911. For all other matters, leave a message." I left a message, keeping my voice calm and factual. I stated my name, my address, the accusation, and the fines. I requested an immediate review and a freeze on the towing order. Then I hung up and stared at my car. The orange cone sat there like a little monument to bureaucratic cruelty. I did not sleep much that night. I kept checking the parking lot through my window, expecting to see a tow truck. Around 2 in the morning, I went out and moved my car to the street, a public right-of-way where the HOA had no jurisdiction. It was not ideal. Street parking in this part of Fort Worth was tight and I risked a ticket, but it was better than letting Paige's tow guy haul it away. I locked the car and walked back to my unit, my breath misting in the cool night air. A light was on in Paige's unit across the lot. I could see her silhouette moving past the window, pacing, maybe on the phone. I wondered who she was calling at 2 in the morning. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my door. I stumbled out of bed, still in my hoodie and sweatpants, and opened it. Paige stood there with a different clipboard, this one thick with papers clipped under a metal binder clip. Behind her was another woman, older, with silver hair and a short bob and a lanyard around her neck that said volunteer in block letters. Paige smiled tightly. "Surprise inspection," she announced. "As part of the ongoing investigation, the Architectural Committee has authorized a compliance review of your unit and any vehicles or storage associated with your address. This is Brenda. She is here to witness and document." I blinked, still groggy. "You cannot just inspect my home without notice," I said. Paige tapped the clipboard. Section 12.4 of the Covenants allows for immediate inspection in cases of suspected theft or safety violations. Your refusal will be noted and will result in additional penalties. I stepped back and let them in, because I had nothing to hide and because I knew refusing would only make things worse. Brenda looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting around my living room like she was expecting a crime scene. Paige walked straight to my kitchen counter and started opening drawers. She pulled out my junk drawer, the one with old batteries and twist ties and expired coupons, and sifted through it with her pen. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "Evidence," she said. "Keys, documents, anything that connects you to the theft." She moved to the coat closet and checked my jacket pockets. Brenda stood by the door, scribbling notes on a small pad. Paige found nothing in my unit, because there was nothing to find. After 20 minutes, she snapped the clipboard shut and turned to Brenda. "No visible evidence at this time, but the absence of evidence does not mean innocence. Note that the resident was cooperative under duress, which is consistent with someone attempting to appear compliant." Brenda nodded slowly, her pen scratching. They left without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. This was escalating faster than I had expected, and I had no idea how to stop it. I spent the rest of the morning calling every attorney in the Fort Worth area who listed HOA disputes on their website. Most were booked or did not return calls. One paralegal told me that unless the HOA filed a lawsuit or a lien, there was not much they could do on short notice. She suggested I document everything, request records in writing, and consider attending the next board meeting to appeal. The next board meeting was 3 weeks away. I did not have 3 weeks. I decided to go to the clubhouse and try to access the security footage myself. The clubhouse was a low brick building at the center of the complex, with a gym, a small meeting room, and the storage closet in question. I used my fob to enter the main lobby. The door beeped and clicked open. Inside, the air smelled like cleaning solution and old carpet. A bulletin board on the wall was covered with notices, all printed on the same template letterhead, a stack of identical letters in matching envelopes pinned in a grid. No readable text, just the shape of authority. I walked down the hallway toward the back, where the storage closet door was marked with a laminated sign that said authorized personnel only. The door was locked. I tried the handle, just to confirm. A voice behind me made me jump. "You are not supposed to be back here." I turned. A maintenance guy in a blue work shirt stood at the end of the hall, holding a toolbox. I recognized him. Ray. An older man who had been with the complex for years. I raised my hands in a non-threatening gesture. "I know," I said. "I am trying to clear my name. Someone accused me of stealing the storage keys, and I need to see the camera footage." Ray frowned and walked closer. "Paige already came by this morning," he said. "She told me not to let you near this area. She said you were under investigation." I felt my frustration spike, but I kept my voice calm. "Did she show you any proof?" I asked. "Did she explain how I supposedly got in here without a key?" Ray shifted his weight. "She said your fob was logged." I do not know the details. I just know I am not supposed to let anyone in without board approval. I thanked him and walked back to the lobby. My plan to access the footage had hit a wall. I needed a different angle. I pulled out my phone and checked the resident portal again. Still no response to my records request. I opened the message board section, a rarely used feature where residents could post questions. I typed a short post asking if anyone else had experienced issues with missing items or selective enforcement. I hit submit. The post went live immediately, and within 5 minutes, 3 replies appeared. One said they had a package stolen from their porch last month and the HOA never followed up. Another said cleaning supplies kept vanishing from the gym. A third said they had filed a complaint about a board member storing personal items in the clubhouse, and the complaint was deleted. I took screenshots of the replies before they could be removed. Then I noticed something. The third reply included a detail. The user said they had seen Paige moving boxes into the storage closet late one evening, and when questioned, Paige claimed it was HOA property. But the boxes had a shipping label with a personal name, not the association name. The user did not have photos, but they remembered the date, 6 days ago. I cross-referenced that date with my own calendar. 6 days ago, I had been on a service call until 9 at night, miles away, with a GPS timestamp and a signed customer invoice to prove it. I called my dispatcher and asked her to pull my service records for that week. She emailed them over within an hour. I printed them at a FedEx office down the street, making 3 copies. The records showed I had been at a commercial job site in Arlington from 7 to 9:30 that evening, the exact window when the storage closet had allegedly been accessed. I also requested my phone's location history from my carrier, a process that would take a few days but would provide additional proof. While I was at the FedEx office, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice, professional and clipped. This is Dennis from Apex Towing. I have an order to pick up a vehicle at Harbor Point, Unit 214. Are you the owner? I said I was. He continued. The work order says HOA authorization, but I need written documentation before I hook up. Do you have that available? I felt a rush of relief. No, I said. I do not, and I did not authorize this tow. The HOA member who called you does not have the authority to tow my car without a hearing or proper notice. There was a pause. Dennis sighed. Look, I deal with HOA stuff all the time. If there is a dispute, I need a signed authorization from the management company or a board vote. Otherwise, I am not touching it. Your car is on the street now, right? I confirmed. He said he would cancel the order and log it as disputed. He gave me his direct number and told me to call him if Paige tried again. I thanked him and hung up. Dennis was now an ally, a tow driver who refused to be used as Paige's muscle. That was one piece of leverage. I needed more. I drove back to Harbor Point and parked on the street again, then walked to the management office, a small suite in a strip mall 2 miles from the complex. The office was part of a third-party management company that handled multiple HOAs in the area. Inside, the waiting area had plastic chairs and a fake potted plant. A young woman sat behind a desk, typing on a computer. I approached and asked to speak to someone about my account. She glanced at her screen. You are the one with the fines, she said. Not unkindly. You need to talk to Sharon, but she is in a meeting. Can you wait? I waited. 45 minutes later, a middle-aged woman with glasses and a tired expression emerged from a back office. Sharon, the property manager. She motioned for me to follow her. We sat in a small conference room with a laminate table and no windows. I laid out my printed service records, my phone screenshots, and my timeline. I explained the accusation, the fines, the inspection, and the tow threat. Sharon listened, her face neutral. When I finished, she tapped her pen on the table. Paige filed a formal complaint with supporting documentation, she said. Until the board reviews it, the fines stand. I asked what supporting documentation. Sharon pulled a file from a stack on the table and opened it. A printed copy of the same security video frame Paige had shown me, along with a typed statement claiming I had accessed the storage area and removed property. There was also a handwritten note on HOA letterhead, signed by Paige, stating that I had refused to cooperate and obstructed the investigation. I pointed to the printed video frame. That timestamp is unreadable, I said. And the fob log she referenced was never provided to me. Sharon frowned. She picked up the page and held it closer, squinting. You are right, she said. I cannot read this. I asked if she could pull the actual access log from the security system. She said she did not have direct access. The board controlled that. I asked if she could request it. She made a note. Then I showed her the message board screenshots, the replies about missing items and Paige storing personal boxes. Sharon's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of concern. This is new information, she said. If there is a pattern of theft or misuse, that changes things. But I cannot act on screenshots alone. You need witnesses or physical evidence. I left the management office with a sliver of hope but no immediate solution. Sharon had agreed to request the access log from the board, but she warned me it could take days. I drove back to Harbor Point, parked on the street again, and walked to my unit. As I approached, I saw Paige standing beside a flatbed tow truck in the parking lot, talking to the driver. My stomach dropped. The truck had backed into a position near my assigned spot, which was empty because my car was on the street. Paige was gesturing emphatically, pointing at the empty space and then at a clipboard. The driver, a different guy than Dennis, looked confused. I walked over, my pulse spiking. Paige saw me and her face lit up with vindictive glee. There you are, she said loudly. Your car was moved illegally to avoid lawful enforcement. That is an additional violation. I ignored her and spoke directly to the driver. I am the owner, I said. Do you have written authorization from the HOA to tow my vehicle? He glanced at Paige, then back at me. She said it was an emergency tow, he said. Unauthorized parking in a restricted spot. I shook my head. My car is not in the lot, I said. It is parked legally on the public street. You have no authority to tow it from there. The driver checked his paperwork, flipping through pages. He looked at Paige. The work order says Unit 214 parking space, he said. If the car is not there, I cannot tow it. Paige's face flushed red. Hook it anyway, she snapped. He moved it to avoid enforcement. That proves guilt. The driver stepped back, holding up his hands. Lady, I am not hooking a car that is not in the location on the order. If you want me to tow from the street, you need a police-authorized tow, and that is a whole different process. Paige pulled out her phone and started recording again, her gimbal stabilizing the shot. This driver is refusing to enforce HOA policy, she said into the camera. Resident has fled the jurisdiction and is currently evading lawful penalties. I will be filing a complaint with the towing company and escalating this to the board tonight. The driver muttered something under his breath and climbed back into his truck. He pulled away slowly, the flatbed ramp rattling. Paige stood there, breathing hard, her phone still aimed at me. You think you won, she said. You think moving your car to the street makes you safe. I have already contacted a vendor dispatcher who says they need written authorization, and I will have it by end of business today. Then your car will be towed from wherever it sits, and you will owe impound fees on top of everything else. She turned and walked away, her blazer flapping. I stood in the empty parking lot, my mind racing. The tow driver's refusal had bought me time, but Paige was clearly not giving up. I needed to move faster. I went back to my unit and pulled up the HOA governing documents on my laptop. I had downloaded them when I first moved in, a dense PDF full of legalese. I searched for the word tow. 3 results. 1 was a general clause about unauthorized vehicles. 1 was about overnight guest parking. The 3rd was about the process for towing a resident's vehicle. It required a written notice, a hearing opportunity, and board approval. Paige had skipped all 3 steps. I screenshot the relevant section and emailed it to Sharon at the management office, copying myself. In the email, I pointed out that the towing order was invalid under the HOA's own rules and requested an immediate halt to any further enforcement actions until a proper hearing could be scheduled. I hit send and prayed someone would read it before Paige found a more cooperative tow company. That night, I got a call from Dennis, the first tow driver. He said Paige had called his company again, trying to escalate the order through a different dispatcher. The dispatcher had asked for the written authorization, and Paige had sent over a scanned image of a form. Dennis forwarded me the image. I opened it on my phone. It was a generic tow authorization template, filled out by hand with Paige's signature at the bottom and a line that said "Board Approved" stamped in red ink. But there was no board meeting date, no vote record, and no counter-signature from the HOA president or management company. It looked official, but it was hollow. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA revenge tales. I called Sharon again, this time on her cell which she had given me during our meeting. She answered on the third ring. I told her about the forged authorization form. She asked me to forward the image. I did. A minute later, she called me back. That is not a valid authorization, she said. The board has not met since last month, and even if they had, Paige does not have signing authority. She is an architectural committee member, not an officer. This is a serious problem. I am going to contact the board president tonight and put a hold on all enforcement actions related to your account. I thanked her and hung up, feeling the first real crack in Paige's armor. The next morning, I got a text from Ray, the maintenance guy. He said he needed to talk to me, off the record. We met at a coffee shop a mile from Harbor Point. Ray looked nervous, stirring his coffee without drinking it. I did some digging, he said. After you asked about the footage, I checked the access logs myself, the ones the board keeps in the office. Your fob was logged at the main clubhouse door. Yeah, but it was never logged at the storage closet interior door. That door has a separate reader, and the only fobs logged that night were Paige's and mine. I was doing a repair, and I logged out 10 minutes later. Paige's fob stayed active for 40 minutes. I felt my pulse quicken. Can you get me a copy of that log, I asked? Ray shook his head. Not without getting fired, he said. But I can tell you where it is. There is a printed report in the office file cabinet, updated weekly. If you can get Sharon to pull it, it will show everything. He also told me something else. He had noticed Paige moving boxes out of the storage closet 2 weeks ago, late at night. He had not thought much of it at the time, but one of the boxes had split open, and he saw what looked like personal items inside. A coffee maker, some framed photos, a jewelry box. He had assumed she was cleaning out donated items. But now, he was not sure. I thanked Ray and promised to keep his name out of it. Then I called Sharon again and told her what Ray had said, without naming him. I asked her to pull the access log from the office. She said she would try, but she needed board approval. I reminded her that the board president had already agreed to halt enforcement. She sighed and said she would call him. 2 hours later, Sharon emailed me a scanned PDF. The access control report, dated and timestamped. My fob was listed entering the main clubhouse at 6:15 that evening. Paige's fob was listed entering the main clubhouse at 6:40. My fob showed an exit at 6:30 when I left the gym. Paige's fob showed an entry at the storage closet interior door at 6:50 with an exit at 7:30. The stolen keys had been reported missing the next morning. I had my proof. I forwarded the report to Dennis the tow driver, to Sharon, and to my own email for backup. Then I printed 3 copies and put them in a folder. I also pulled the message board screenshots, the service records, and the phone location request confirmation into the same folder. I was building a case, and I was going to deliver it in person. That afternoon, I drove to the management office again. Sharon met me in the lobby. I handed her the folder. She flipped through it, her expression tightening. "This is conclusive," she said. "You were not in the storage area. Paige was." I asked what happens next. She said she would present it to the board president and recommend an immediate suspension of all fines and a formal investigation into Paige's conduct. She also said I should file a police report for the false accusation and the attempted vehicle theft. I agreed. I drove to the Fort Worth Police Department's Northwest substation and filed a report. The officer who took my statement was a deputy named Ramirez, a calm woman in her 30s who listened carefully and took notes. She said the towing threat and the false accusation could constitute harassment or filing a false report, but proving intent was tricky. She gave me an incident number and told me to follow up with the DA's office if I wanted to pursue charges. She also said that if Paige continued to escalate, I should call them immediately. I left the substation feeling lighter. I had a police incident number on file, a full evidence folder, and allies in place. Now I needed to confront Paige directly, in a way that would make her own theft scheme collapse in front of witnesses. I decided to wait for the next escalation, because I knew it was coming. It came 2 days later. I was home after a long service call, sitting on my couch, when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo of my sedan, still parked on the street, with a new orange tag on the windshield. The tag had no readable text, just the shape of an official notice. Below the photo, a message, final warning. Tow scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Pay all fines by midnight or lose the vehicle. The message was unsigned, but I knew it was from Paige. I forwarded the text to Ramirez and to Sharon. Then I set an alarm for 5:30 a.m. and went to bed. The next morning, I woke in the dark and dressed quickly. I grabbed my evidence folder and drove to the street where my car was parked. The orange tag was still on the windshield, fluttering in the pre-dawn wind. I pulled it off and put it in the folder. Then, I sat in my car and waited. At 5:55, a flatbed tow truck turned onto the street, its amber lights flashing. It slowed and pulled up behind my sedan. The driver got out, a young guy in a high-visibility vest. He walked around my car, checking the license plate against his paperwork. I got out and approached him. "I am the owner," I said. "Do you have authorization?" He nodded and handed me a printed work order. It was the same forged form Dennis had sent me, with Paige's signature and the fake board stamp. I showed him my phone, with the access control report and the police incident number on the screen. "This authorization is fraudulent," I said. "The person who signed it does not have authority, and I have proof." The driver frowned and pulled out his phone. He made a call, speaking quietly. While he was on the phone, another car pulled up. Paige's white crossover. She parked across the street and got out, her blazer already on, her ponytail tight. She walked over, her face set in a hard line. "You cannot stop this," she said to me. "The tow is happening. The driver is just confirming the details." I held up my folder. "The authorization is fake," I said. "The board never approved this, and I have the access logs that prove you were the one in the storage closet, not me." Paige's eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed. "You are bluffing," she said. "You do not have access to those records." I opened the folder and pulled out the printed report, holding it so she could see the highlighted lines. Her fob entry. Her 40-minute window. My early exit. The tow driver ended his call and walked over. "My dispatcher says we need a signature from the management company or the board president," he said. "I cannot proceed without it." Paige spun on him. "I am an architectural committee member," she snapped. "I have full authority to enforce violations." The driver shook his head. "That is not what my company requires, ma'am. I am sorry." He climbed back into his truck and pulled away, leaving Paige standing on the curb, her mouth open in shock. I turned to her. "You stole the keys," I said quietly. "You stored personal items in the clubhouse, and when someone complained, you framed me to cover it up. I have the access logs, the witness statements, and a police incident number." If you keep pushing, I will make sure everyone knows. Paige's face went from red to white. She stepped back, her hands shaking. You cannot prove anything, she said, her voice cracking. I pulled out my phone and called Sharon, putting it on speaker. Sharon answered immediately. I explained the situation, the second tow attempt, the forged form. Sharon's voice was sharp. Paige, this is Sharon. The board president has been briefed. You are suspended from all HOA duties pending a full investigation. Any further contact with this resident will be considered harassment. Do you understand? Paige stared at the phone, her mouth working but no sound coming out. Then she turned and walked back to her car, her shoulders hunched. I watched her drive away, the sunrise painting the street in orange and gold. I called Ramirez and updated her. She said the DA would review the case, but the police incident number and the evidence would likely be enough to pursue harassment charges if Paige tried anything else. I thanked her and hung up. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Sharon. The board had voted to remove Paige from the architectural committee and to reverse all fines on my account. The investigation had uncovered a pattern of missing items from the clubhouse storage, and a stash container had been found in Paige's assigned parking space, hidden under a tarp in her vehicle. Inside were the padlock keys, a box of cleaning supplies, and several personal items that matched descriptions from other residents' complaints. The board had filed a formal complaint with the local police, and Paige was facing theft charges. The HOA also sent a community-wide message, distributed through the portal and posted on the bulletin board, correcting the false accusations and clarifying that no resident had been found guilty of theft. My name was not mentioned, but everyone in the complex knew who had been targeted. Paige's credibility collapsed in front of witnesses, and within a month, she had moved out of Harbor Point entirely. I got my parking spot back, my access restored, and an apology letter from the board president. The letter was on the same template letterhead I had seen before, the stack of identical letters and matching envelopes, but this time the message was different. It acknowledged the failure of oversight and promised new policies to prevent abuse of authority. I filed it with the rest of my evidence folder, a small trophy of a fight I had never wanted, but had won on paper, on principle, and on the public record. A vendor refusing to cooperate without proper authorization had been the first crack. Karen's credibility collapsed in front of witnesses when the stash container was opened and the access logs were presented. The HOA sent a community message correcting the rumor without naming me, and Paige's reign of petty cruelty ended not with a dramatic boardroom vote, but with a police incident number, a refusal from a tow driver, and a confrontation in the cold dawn light where she had no script and no crowd to perform for. All ban lead Rossi episode Susie opened the tubely MSTV Ford backs and most so many police correctively flew down. The bur policed asked only 4 year and 16%. Our list policed, learny believing monstmon or back Susie obese the artist techman to the maxi. The funny karma moment came a week after Paige moved out. A neighbor stopped me at the mailbox cluster and told me she had seen Paige trying to shame me on video, and a witness, Ray the maintenance guy, had fact-checked her instantly when she tried to claim the access logs were fake. Ray had pulled the printed report from the office and shown it to 3 other residents, killing her lie before it could spread. Paige had spent years building a persona of authority, and it took one shift in lighting, one refusal from a vendor, and one maintenance guy with a conscience to bring it all down. I still live at Harbor Point. The new architectural committee is quieter, less theatrical, and nobody has tried to tow my car since. I keep the evidence folder in my desk drawer, a reminder that paper trails and calm persistence can outlast screaming and threats. And every time I see that bulletin board in the clubhouse, covered in those identical template letters, I think about the difference between authority and power, and how quickly the former collapses when the paperwork does not match the performance. Thank you for the support.